Nau mai hara mai ki Kaupapa On The Couch. Ko te Māori tangata kaupapa o te rānei. Among Whanganui iwi, there's a very famous saying. E rere kau mai te awa nui, mai te kāhui maunga ki Tangaroa, ko au te awa, ko te awa ko au. The great river flows from the mountains to the sea. I am the river, and the river is me. In March this year, the Te Awa Tupua Bill passed into law, and Whanganui iwi ended a more than 150-year-long struggle to gain recognition for their relationship with the Whanganui River. The Te Awa Tupua Bill included legal recognition of the Whanganui River as a person. Holy, that's a big person. I bet it could eat like 1 million Big Macs. So what that means, among other things, is that lawsuits can be brought to protect the land on behalf of the land itself without having to prove that any harm has been done to any people. Here's Professor Jacinta Ruru to tell us more about the legislation behind it.
In terms of legal personality as a concept, it's something that we use quite naturally, but in terms of it in the environment, it's really new. From a Western perspective, it began back with Professor Christopher Stone in the United States in the 1970s. He wrote this book, Should Trees Have Standing? And he proceeded to answer that by saying our forests, our oceans, our environment ought to be able to have a standing in the courts. Someone ought to be able to speak for and on behalf of nature. And I think that's incredibly exciting what this legislation has done, because it sees the joining of a Western perspective of law, legal personality, but in really seeing it from a Māori perspective. Our lands around us have always had personality.
Whanganui iwi have been demanding that their interests in the river be recognised by the Crown since the 1870s. The river that gave life and livelihood to all of their hapu has been damaged and degraded by gravel extraction, the introduction of foreign species, the destruction of their part tuna eels, and the diversion of water by the Tongariro Power Division. Check out this really great documentary about the history of Whanganui River and its people. All of this was done despite their very vocal opposition to it. The river is so important to Whanganui iwi that it was even submitted as a separate treaty claim to their land claims, first brought to the Waitangi Tribunal in 1994. More than 20 years later, that treaty bill resulted in the Te Awa Tupua Bill. And it's not just Whanganui River. In 2014, Te Urewera National Park, which is in Te Rohe Pōtai, the tribal lands of Ngai Tūhoe, was also granted legal personhood. Like Whanganui iwi, what Tūhoe wanted was to be reunited with the land that is the very source of their cultural identity, their giver of life, i.e. their ancestor. Tamati Kruger, the chief negotiator of that groundbreaking settlement, knew that the Crown wasn't going to give up ownership of the national park. Tamati's team suggested that nobody owned the land, and in fact, the land would own itself.
I think it works brilliantly for a national park, absolutely, because many of those principles of the national park remain still in this concept of the legal personality. And as part of that Te Urewera Act, it still welcomes visitors, absolutely, for us all nationally and internationally, to visit and to be part of that place, but to experience it from a Māori worldview, from a Tūhoe worldview.
Fun fact, there is no Māori word or term that has the exact equivalence of the English verb own, to own something. There are words that kind of describe it: rangatira mana, rangatiratanga, and whai. So even though assets and resources do pass over into ownership by iwi and hapu after treaty settlements, it's almost always got more to do with kaitiakitanga or guardianship and protection than ownership. And by giving that entity legal personhood, it is now further protected, in theory, from being exploited or used in ways that are harmful to it. On the one hand, in a Western legal sense, it's a new form of resource management that puts what's best for the land first. And on the other hand, it's recognition of a core Māori philosophy that we're all connected, and the spiritual and physical well-being of people is tied to the spiritual and physical well-being of the natural world around us.
As we know, all Māori throughout the country have stories about the landscape around us, and one that is incredibly important in terms of our tallest mountain, in Aotearoa, New Zealand, Auraki Mount Cook. Now, it's not my story to tell, it's a Ngaitahu story to tell, but it is one that I do share, and I absolutely mihi te Ngaitahu around the story. But it is an important one, I think, for us as a country, and it's a neat one because it's incorporated within our legislation. So the Ngaitahu Claim Settlement Act of 1998 includes in its schedules a whole lot of these Ngaitahu stories and relationships with the landscape. Ngaitahu record part of that story there about Auraki being the son of Ranganui that travels down to Papatūānuku, with his brothers to find their mother. They're unable to find her, and so they say that karakia incorrectly, and they hit that hidden reef, and the whole waka, being the South Island, is formed with the brothers, clambering to the top of that waka and forming that whole mountain range of the Southern Alps. All iwi around the country have these stories. They're an important foundation of tikanga Māori, of the first laws of these lands.
What do you think about these important Māori worldviews being recognised in law? Let us know below. Ka kite au kia koutou katoa, tērā marama. We'll see you next month for another episode of Kaupapa On The Couch.